Hey, welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to RetroActive, the only podcast online where you can hear the sweet, soothing voices of myself, Will.
And me, Joey, your host for this week and every week from now until eternity.
Now until the end of time.
Time being when we decide to stop this.
Yeah, which will not be now, because here we are again for week number 3.
Number 3, yes.
Episode number 3.
And so what do we have for this week, Will?
Well,
what did you spend this whole week doing, thinking about?
See, I was going to ask you that first because I haven't really done a whole lot. It was a very hard week for me at work, so I've just been doing work stuff.
I thought you said you said you spent like a good amount of time writing up this week. Thoughts?
Oh, I did actually. I actually sat down and I wrote a lot of thoughts about this week because, we have a topic that we want to touch on, but we'll get to that eventually. We don't want to blow it right in the first 2 minutes.
Let's do that.
You want
to just blow it right now?
Well, okay. Well, we can kind of lead into it. I mean, obviously the big thing happening this next week is, dude, Street Fighter V is finally coming out.
I know.
This week on Tuesday.
It just came way too fast.
Yeah. I mean, already it's that Street Fighter V, that's a big, I feel like Street Fighter is a big game for us, especially, you in particular, you and Jared, Johnny, all you guys used to play it so often.
It was, I'm looking back at that, I'm still pretty surprised at just how much we used to play it.
Yeah.
Looking back, we weren't even really that great at it, but
well,
the fact that we even played it against each other at the time, nowadays we don't even consider it that much.
Yeah, I never see any of you guys playing
we'll play
Ultra.
against other people
Mm-hmm.
online, but not much against each other anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I guess too the fact that we don't hang out every single weekend as much as we used to back
that's what
in the
online days. That's what online play is for.
Oh yeah, but I mean, come on, some of the funnest times that we had were meeting up on Friday nights, right, and just basically spending entire Friday nights either playing Rock Band or Street Fighter 4.
Yeah.
And
all its iterations.
Oh, God. Yeah, speaking of which, I mean, okay, let's talk Street Fighter V, coming out this on February 16th. So the idea is, 16 characters that they're going to have
16,
to start off?
16 on release, and then another 5 for planned right now for DLC.
All right, and that's supposed to be Season 1.
Yeah, who knows how many they'll end up having in the game. Street Fighter 4 ended up with 40 plus.
God, yeah, it was a lot by the time Ultra came out. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought the Marvel games always had a lot of characters, but Street Fighter is just up there with them.
Yeah, and it's funny going back and looking at some of the older Street Fighter games, and you look at the rosters and you think, man, that's not a lot of characters.
No, it's not. So the original had 8, which is reasonable for the initial the initial game. And then all the way up until I want to say 3 had maybe around 20 to 30.
Yeah, that's when it started to get a much bigger roster of characters. Because even Alpha only had a dozen at the most, right?
Yeah.
Because it's I've been watching actually a lot of Maximilian's videos on YouTube recently.
Yeah, he's good. He's a good YouTuber.
Yeah, he's been going back and going through the entire legacy of Street Fighter, starting with the original Street Fighter 1. Which is, oh my God, it's fucking terrible.
It looks terrible. I've never actually controlled it, but I can totally imagine just how difficult being that you can't. You just can't do anything.
You can't do anything. He was you can hear him actually when he's playing through it. He's using an arcade stick, and you can hear him just mashing out, trying to do like a Hadouken.
Just whatever input that catches. Exactly. Hopefully something will come out.
It's so hilarious. But yeah, it's even going back and looking at some of those games and how few characters there were, and then you look at Ultra and where Ultra ended up by the end there, and it's wow, that's a lot of characters that game had. So going back to even 16 is 16 feels man, there's not a whole lot.
Yeah, speaking of characters in the Street Fighter games, I don't know if you saw it, but the AV Club, they just published an article maybe about 2 days ago or yesterday, and they talked about. It was just all about Street Fighter 2 and just how important character choice was.
Oh yeah,
at the time especially because that was in 1991 I think.
Yeah, that
when
was
Street Fighter 2 came out. And the way they put it was that they described Street Fighter 2 as a game that led the way for a medium of self-expression Because before Street Fighter 2, there were a lot of games that you could compete with another person. Pong was the first one. Then there's a whole bunch of other ones that are like mostly sports games, but a lot of
Yeah.
there's like some combat stuff.
Yeah, like competitive kind of stuff.
But the thing with those is that every single character or thing that you can control plays exactly the same.
Mm-hmm.
And what Street Fighter did is that it gave people all the tools, because each character was different, but they all played how they could play.
Right.
It's just up to the person. It was up to the person playing them in order to give life to that, and that's what they said made it so like unique.
Right. It's kind of like a representation almost of like you, based on who you pick and how you play that character.
Yeah, and there was one quote that they had in there, and it goes like this. They said it was the first truly great game without perfection as the ultimate goal. Skill was never the end game, or at least not the only end game. It was and is potentially infinite.
Damn.
Think about that. Well, yeah, because you think about people who train in Street Fighter, they don't get to a point where they're, oh yes, I'm perfect, I'm done.
Yeah.
They just keep going because they know that everyone else is doing the exact same thing.
Right.
Working towards a goal that's not like tangible. That like, yeah, okay, you could say a goal is like winning Evo, which plenty of people have done, but in addition to that, they don't just stop there.
Exactly. I was thinking that, like, as you were saying, that the whole idea of like the end goal, like there's no perfection as the end goal. It's like, yeah, you win Evo, but then what happens after that? Well, you have to get back up there again.
Yeah,
you have to defend your title.
It's not like speed running a game where you just keep getting better and better, and up to a point that there's all these diminishing returns where you can't get any faster than that.
Right.
Whereas Street Fighter is that you get to a certain point, you win Evo, then you just keep going because people are going to get better than you were at that point.
Exactly. And it's like, well, it's also now that's the thing. It's like when you look back on it, I mean, how many times, especially for Street Fighter in particular, how many times have you seen repeat champions in like the last 5 or 10 years?
Daigo is the only one I can think of.
And it's like, I mean, there are usually the same handful of people that maybe make like top 10 or like top 8 even.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like you never see the same person really win 2 or 3 in a row.
Yeah.
Like that's like the peak of Street Fighter perfection. No, it's like they have to keep training and keep coming up with new ideas and new things because, well, like once you win Evo, then everyone's gunning for you. So they're going to basically try to like train on how to like, all right, how do I play against this person for next year? Which is actually, I mean, it's pretty interesting to think about that too. Like, just think about like that meta of like tournaments and everything too, and how that works.
Yeah, like I don't know if it's been. I guess it might start with Street Fighter 3, but Street Fighter 4 and the whole has it been 6 years 7 years almost.
Probably about 7 or 8.
Yeah, it's 2009. 7 years that it's been out. It was the one that really propelled the Street Fighter franchise into like fully like produce competitive gaming.
I know it's crazy how big like Evo, for example, has gotten. I mean, you look at it. The last year we went, I think that was 2 years ago.
Yeah,
and it's just like so for reference, like Joey and I, we've gone to Evo probably. I think like maybe it was
4 times.
4 times.
I've gone 4. I might have
gone
3.
only 3, but yeah, we went like consecutively for like 3 years in a row. And oh my God, it's just every year it just got bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
So we were able to see firsthand just how much like it grew in just the 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, I mean it's been going on since the early 2000s.
Yeah.
But I think when they finally moved it to Vegas, that was when it got really large. Like I think that was 2007 or 8.
Right.
A couple years before we started going.
Yeah, it used to be here in California back.
Yeah, it was
in the
like in
days?
SoCal.
Right, like at UCLA or something like that.
It was Irvine, I think.
Irvine. Yeah, well, party school. There you go.
Yeah, and they just had it at these like little convention centers, like sometimes like just basically an auditorium that they use on the campus. But yeah, once they moved to Vegas, that opened up so many avenues for them to grow.
Yeah, and it's also, hey, you're in Vegas, so what better place to bet on the outcomes and everything, right? Make some money on there. We see that going on a lot every time we were there.
Okay, and then going back to the AV Club article, one of the other quotes that they had was, it goes like this: its most lasting innovation, though, is that it didn't force us to play within the confines of winning and losing, and Street Fighter 2 let us express ourselves.
I like that.
I mean, yeah, we just talked about Evo and like the competition where it is about winning and losing, but they also mentioned that player base that made Street Fighter 2 and the Street Fighter franchise as big as it did, those aren't necessarily the people that compete. There's millions of other people that just played for fun and played for the reasons that they have.
Right.
Not necessarily to get better and to compete at a professional level, but just to have fun and use the characters that they like.
Yeah. And of course, it's like, it's very telling based on like the characters. I mean, because I feel like for a lot of players, they're very partial to select characters too.
Yeah.
It's, like you said, kind of an kind of an extension of that person.
It's the same with pretty much any fighting game, any game that lets you choose what your character is and looks like.
That's why I like RPGs, because it's in a way it's very much
similar
kind
RPGs
of thing.
A lot of times they'll just give you the main character. You can name them, but you can't really it's not really as customizable as some people would like. AKA me.
Yeah, definitely. Oh man. But yeah, going back to the character thing, it's just like, for example, because like I look at based on our character choices alone for like Ultra and stuff like that. Like I look at you and I'm just like El Fuerte, for example.
Yes.
That was like your main character.
He
was
for
a while.
Because like I think each character, the way the character plays and like their personality makes a huge impact on how a person views the game.
Right.
Like with my character in Street Fighter 4, he's fast, he's goofy, he's hilarious, he has all these things. That influences my perspective on the game itself. I don't take it nearly as seriously as some people do.
Yeah, and I could see that with you. It's like the funny thing is like, when I think of like Fuerte and the way he plays, I very much think of the way you play the game and everything. Whereas somebody like our friend Jer, who, for a while there, he was like using characters like Seth or Evil Ryu and everything. He tried to get very competitive with it and try to get very serious with it. And that's very much apparent, I think, in the character choices that he makes in the game.
And I think that it also goes to say that people who make the choices like I do, whereas, if it's a character that may not be considered as serious, it's harder for people to take those players as seriously.
Right.
That's why when you have some players that, they play El Fuerte or they play these low-tier goofy characters, when they start succeeding with them, it's so much more fun to watch.
Oh yeah, for sure. Because it's like you want to root for those characters too half the time, because you get tired of seeing like, oh, it's like there's another Evil Ryu, there's another like whatever the top characters are. I tend to forget but yeah, it's like you get tired of seeing the same characters. So when you see somebody like come out with with like a goofy character, like I remember that where was that? There was one Evo where Infiltration came out and used
Hakan.
Played
Hakan, yeah.
Yeah, and of course I love Hakan. I thought Hakan was like one of the more hilarious characters like when Super was released. And I tried to play him, and it's just like I'm very bad at fighting games, but it's just I find that character so hilarious. So it's like to see like a top tier player use Hakan in that situation, I'm just like, yes.
People would cheer for that no matter what.
Just because it's Hakan. It's like not that necessarily that everybody wanted Infiltration to win, but it's just like, when you pick that kind of a character in like a really like
high level play like that.
Yeah, it's like you want to root for them.
Yes. So here's to hoping that Street Fighter V also has, similar characters like that, where it's not necessarily they're bad characters or they're not as strong like they can be, but it's about how that the character's play style and personality influences the player, and how they're gonna take the game.
Yeah, I think that was the biggest thing for me looking at Street Fighter 4 or Street Fighter 5 is it's like, especially with all the new characters that they are coming out with, it's like I want them to have like that same kind of personality. I that's kind of what I like about Street Fighter compared to some other fighting games. I feel like it has that delicate balancing act of having outlandish characters without also like sacrificing, the somewhat serious nature of the game and the serious competitiveness of it. Yeah.
Well, I think if there's one thing that does affect that, it's the inclusion of DLC characters.
Oh yeah.
Because I think the most recent example is probably Smash for the Wii U, and they've been constantly introducing new characters.
Yeah, a lot of good ones too. A lot of cool third party characters.
Yeah.
Cloud.
They have Cloud. They have Ryu. They have Ryu in the game.
Yeah, they have Ryu. They have Bayonetta.
Yeah,
that
was
pretty cool.
A surprise, but not really, because I think everyone was expecting it.
Yeah, supposedly she's really broken in the game. Like she's really good.
And that's one of the problems, I think. Once they get down this road of introducing DLC characters, beyond that is the idea of balancing these characters.
Yeah,
because they probably tested it themselves, like internally, but once you get those characters in the hands of players, they're the ones that are going to discover things that the company's never thought of before.
Exactly. They're the ones who are going to come out with like all the crazy combo videos, finding like glitches and things that or infinites and everything that can, potentially break the game and break that competitive like tournament play.
Yeah, it's gonna require the tournament themselves to take matters into their own hands, like banning characters and whatnot.
Yeah. I think that leads us into like what the topic for today really was. Really is supposed to be about, like DLC in general, right? Like, I mean, there was a lot I think that we each have to say about like DLC and the way that I think Capcom is doing it this time around.
There's a lot you have to say. I'm just gonna sit back and listen.
Well, I mean, first of all, I mean, there's like some good things I think that they're doing that they've announced. For example, like, I think Ono came out and said, for example, for Street Fighter V, there's not going to be any new, like, quote unquote, like new additions to Street Fighter V.
Yeah, it's going to be 5 and then that's it. You're not going to have to buy a Ultra or Super or anything like that.
Yeah, like they're supposed to just like release continuous updates to the game that are supposed to be free, which, like on one hand, you know what? That's great, because I think that was kind of one of the big problems with Street Fighter 4 was that the constant upgrading and constantly having, I mean, not that, like having to pay extra for those upgrades was that bad. I mean, because it's like, what, an extra $15-20 for like each upgrade. But it's kind of like, it's almost like creating a whole new barrier of entry, like to have to keep buying like what supposedly is like, feels like a new game, And
not only the barrier of entry, but just for people who don't follow it as closely, they're throwing new editions every couple years, and they're gonna have to figure out which one is the latest, and they're gonna have to look up stuff because they had, for example, when Super came out, afterwards they came out with Arcade Edition.
Yep.
And then they had an update to that Arcade Edition for 2012.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I didn't even think
and that
about
was a completely separate release.
Yeah. And then I think there was stuff I think at a recent tournament, for example, where it's like they realized that they were using the wrong patch for the game.
Yeah.
And so it's like they had to redo like an entire bracket or something like that because the system was running on the wrong patch. So
like it's one thing to keep like, with Street Fighter V updating it and like regularly and having it all be consistent. Yeah. As opposed to having like all these little small releases and hoping that people, keep up with it.
Yeah, exactly. It should, I mean, that's the thing too. It's like if you think about people who maybe like walk away from the game for a little while, it's like
even a year.
Yeah, and
it's
enough
like they for it to throw it off.
Exactly. They'd come back and realize, I'm playing like an outdated version of the game, and now I have to pay $20 to buy the new version. Some people at that point would just be like, forget it.
Yeah.
I don't really need to get back into this. But with the constant updates to Street Fighter V, the constant free updates, you could just hop right back in and just pick up where you left off in that case, which is awesome. And I think it's also great for like, tournament play in particular, because everybody will remain on the same level, It's not a matter of like who's spent a lot of time playing like the most recent version of the game.
Yeah, or who, in terms of Smash at least, who's bought like the newest character and the most overpowered one.
Exactly. That's the thing, is it's like with the characters in particular, it's like, well, if you bought the character and you've had a lot of time, from day one, and you've had all that time to like play against them or to play as them and discover certain things, you have that kind of advantage against players who haven't necessarily had that time. Which I think is another cool thing that they're doing actually about the DLC in Street Fighter V, is that they've come out and they've kind of said that we're going to release the characters two ways. You can either pay real money for them. I guess in game it's called, they're using two different types of currency, the way kind of like other games like League of Legends, for example, is they have their download set.
I would not know.
Yeah. So for example, like, okay, there's two ways you can get DLC in Street Fighter V, like in game. You can either pay real money to get this currency called Zenny, which is a
Zenny?
Zenny. It's a throwback to Mega Man Legends, if you remember that.
No,
that was the currency in Mega Man Legends.
Why are they bringing it into my Street Fighter?
I don't know, especially considering they hate Mega Man now. Or the other way that you can get DLC characters is by earning fight money. And fight money is the money that you get from actually playing matches and playing through the story modes and just actually playing the game normally. And it's the same way like that they do it in League of Legends, where by playing matches and playing games, you earn like XP or whatever kind of points just from playing matches, or you can actually spend money and actually get what's called like league points. And the league points usually mean that you can get like skins or characters for cheaper than you would otherwise spend.
But you still have to pay for them.
Yeah, you have to pay for that. But I mean, you can unlock characters just by playing the game, but it just costs actually more points.
So you're just gonna have to play a lot longer.
You're just gonna have to play a lot longer. Like I think I never spent a dime in League of Legends when I actually did play it, but I unlocked all the characters I wanted just by playing the game so often. Whereas I mean, I could have just dumped $5 and gotten them right away without having to play at all. But it's also that when you think about it, well, what's the point of that? It's nice to have something that you work towards in that case, which is I think a cool way to do it.
It's good that the game like shows you what it has before it asks you to pay for it. Not like some games which will remain unmentioned, Star Wars Battlefront.
Yeah, I know that you particularly wanted to point out that one as like a bad example of how to do it.
I'm sure a lot of people share my sentiment with this.
Definitely.
Like I'm not unique in my opinion to it, but I will say like having any unreleased content for sale early before the game even comes out kind of diminishes the impact of it.
Oh, definitely.
It's basically like it's having a sign like on the front of your box saying, "Hey, here's an unfinished game."
Yeah, exactly. And yet we're still paying what, like the $60,
and you pay $60
full game
for. No, it's not a full game.
Yeah.
It's like bare bones.
Yeah.
And then another $60 over the course of the next year for stuff that you don't even know about yet.
Yeah, exactly.
You're just like, it is Star Wars. It's the biggest franchise in the world. And so they figured that a lot of people would just trust what they would have to offer.
Yeah, but that's the thing is it's like, I mean, it's been a long time since we've had like a new Star Wars, like a new Battlefront game in particular. Like I think actually with Star Wars they originally canceled the third Battlefront game.
Yeah, that was
a long time ago, back when LucasArts was still making it. So that's the thing though, is it's like they haven't yet earned like the consumer's trust in that sense, So that's,
I mean, they've earned the trust in the consumer's willingness to buy DLC.
Yeah.
Because they've been doing things like this for a long time.
Right, with season passes
for
things.
years. But when it gets, I feel like when it intrudes on a franchise this big and something that's such an unknown, that's a big thing.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many different ways nowadays that companies have been releasing DLC. I mean, and I feel like the way Street Fighter V is doing it, it shows that Capcom is learning from how they've released DLC in the past. Because for me, the biggest thing that I've really, really not liked about their practice before was Street Fighter Cross Tekken. If you remember when that came out?
I have it. I bought it on release date.
Yeah.
Sadly.
And it was one of those things where it's like when people like, so they had all those extra characters on there, right? Like Pac-Man and like ugly box art Mega Man and all that stuff. And it's like, what if you pre-ordered them? I think you got the characters for free or something, or you just had to pay for them.
Something like that. It might have been like a discount or something for like future ones.
But like people soon came to realize that like, wait a minute, all these characters that are DLC characters that are like extra were already not only finished by the time the game released, but they were already on the disc.
Yeah. So when you I remember this because when you bought it, like you go to a PSN store, Xbox Live. Yeah. When you bought it, like the update was only
like a 10K file.
Yeah,
right?
it's just an unlock key for what you already own.
Yeah, and it just kind of like, you're paying for an unlock key for something that's already on a disc that you already spent $60 on, and to me that's kind of bull crap. I mean, it's like for us growing up in the 90s and stuff. It's like when you think about the way that the way that unlockables were done in games. I mean, there were no, like for console games in particular, like there were no such things as like expansion packs. There was no downloadable content or anything.
Because you couldn't save anything.
Exactly. Whatever you had on the cartridge, that was what was going out to the consumer.
And it's not to say that they held stuff back. It's just that they didn't put it behind a paywall.
Yeah. But that was also the cool thing about like games back in the days is all these kind of things like, extra costumes, extra characters and all that stuff. Those were unlockables, or those were like secrets and cheats and stuff.
Yeah,
and
stuff you actually had to play the game for in order to see it, or put in a cheat, or know some kind of code that.
Exactly. I miss that stuff, It's like nowadays, if there, the $60 you pay gets you like you said almost about Battlefront, it gets you an unfinished game.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like instead of like giving you anything to earn or unlock other than achievements and trophies, which
they give you weapons and stuff.
Yeah, but what is that? That's like nothing really. It's like there's no motivation to like keep playing the game really, like once you've finished it for the first time. For a lot of games I feel like there's just like no motivation to go back and play it again. There's not, because you're not unlocking anything new, you're not unlocking anything different by replaying it.
Well, one thing I will say in the defense of games like these, and even Street Fighter, is that they're not meant to be replayed over and over to finish anything.
Right.
They're meant to be like, like I mentioned with the AV Club article, they're meant to be played, with skill as the end game.
Yeah.
It's not perfection. It's just to get better at it, and to express yourselves in terms of Street Fighter. But for Star Wars, all you can really do in that case is just shoot people and get cooler items, and that's about it.
Yeah.
Like there aren't any real personal touches that you can really add to the game, or that the game will add in order for you to want to play it your way.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you maybe get like a different outfit that you can put on your nice like Rebel Alliance person.
You can have a bigger blaster maybe.
Yeah. Bigger blaster to help you shoot people in much the same way that you've been shooting people for already like the first 20
except you
hours.
can do it faster.
Yeah.
And people will just quit the game sooner.
Yeah, I guess too, like my views on that sort of like DLC and that kind of stuff. It's like, I don't know, you can kind of see it comes from me as somebody who's like a single player kind of person. Like I don't play a lot of those competitive like multiplayer games where it's like, skill is kind of the end game.
Yeah.
So, I mean, looking at like, for example, the type of DLC that I would pay for, like I look at DLC and what I want it to do really is is I want it to add to the game like and extend it in kind of a meaningful way.
In what way?
Like, for example, I wrote
what's
down...
What's meaningful to you exactly?
Okay, I mean, for me, like, for the biggest ones I could think of, I mean, these are all for single-player games. I mean, they're games that already by themselves, like...
They're already a complete package.
They're already a complete package. So they're already really great games on their own without having to, like, buy anything other than the game. And the DLC for these games like adds a lot to it. Like the biggest ones for me that I saw like last console generation were Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas.
So just all Fallout games.
Well, yeah, I mean, at least with like
what a surprise.
Well, I mean, like for example, at least with those two, like the thing is, like in the case of Fallout 3, for example, I mean, it shouldn't be a surprise at this point, but like the original ending is, your character kind of like dies or sacrifices themselves at the end of the game, and that's it.
Oh, spoiler alert, by the way.
Spoiler alert. But
this was an 8-year-old game. Come on.
Exactly. I mean, oh god, I think it's older than that almost. Maybe I don't even
7?
remember. Something like, I mean, maybe like 9 years now. I don't know, but I mean, so that was it. Once you got to the end of the game, you just couldn't play anymore unless you reloaded your save file from before the last area. But what they did with one of the expansions, Broken Steel, they actually kind of sort of retcon the ending a little bit. They kind of like, you wake up and you're like, oh, it's like, we dragged you out of there and you're fine now.
So it's just an alternate path.
Yeah.
Alternate timeline.
It extends the game and allows you to keep playing it. And for an open world game as big as Fallout 3 is, if you're just following the story paths, you're missing like 90% of what's out there in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Like those games were about exploration, about finding things out there on your own. And that was the thing, is like, if you just go straight to finish the story, you're going to miss all of that. And the only way that you can go back and check that out again is if you either restart a file or if you like load a file that's from like hours back.
Yeah. So then what did the DLC do for it exactly?
So like I said, it basically kind of like alters the ending so that, you can play past that. You wake up and they're like, oh, well, now the main story quest is finished. It introduces other conflicts, like it introduces like another part of the storyline that you can choose to go and, do right away. Or it just allows you to go back out into the wasteland and continue like finding new quests and helping people. And it does alter the game in such a way that like, whatever you did for the end of the main story, it actually does like extend out into the game world. Like characters acknowledge that like that you finished this quest and that you helped the wasteland, or that you chose not to help them. And I don't know, it's really cool. It's like it basically just adds so much more to the game, and the game itself already was pretty good. So it's like to have like more to play, to extend your playtime, into like however long you want to play it. That it just made it that much better,
I think I can get it.
Yeah.
After that 5-minute monologue, yeah. No, but I mean, yeah, it makes a lot of sense for games to go back and not just revisit, areas, characters, and things that were in the original game, but also to, I guess, expand upon what made it good.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's what, for example, like the Fallout DLC brought to the table. At least most of it. There were some in there that added to like the lore a little bit. Like I think the first DLC was what it is you actually go back in time and you're kind of like reliving like a time before the war. Where like I think it's like the Battle of Anchorage, Alaska. So it's like the U.S. military against the Chinese, and they're fighting in Alaska over like the last of the world's like oil reserves. So, but basically you're in a simulation the whole time. So it's not like, it's not like it affects like the world outside. Although you get to bring like some of the equipment with you back into the real world of the game. So,
how does that work?
I guess as good as mine. It's been a while since I played that DLC. But there are other examples of DLC that actually do a really good job of expanding upon the core game. Grand Theft Auto 4 was another one that I was looking at in particular.
Yeah.
There are those two big like single player additions that they had to it. The Lost and the Damned, where you can kind of play as like the biker gangs and everything in Liberty City, and then there's also the Ballad of Gay Tony.
Yeah.
Which kind of brought a lot of like the wackiness and the hilarity.
Yeah, that's what I heard. Like I remember people kind of miss that from like
from like GTA 3 and
like San Andreas and Vice City.
Yeah,
like 4 was very kind of down to earth, if that even makes sense in the Grand Theft Auto game. But yeah, like I remember people saying they're missing, being able like cheats. I think was one of the things that people kind of missed. Like there were cheats in 4, but like if I want to punch someone across the city,
exactly.
I couldn't do that anymore.
Yeah, I mean you could summon a tank maybe, or like an aircraft or a helicopter. Yeah, but then it's like, the game kind of takes it really seriously. Like you get like 5 stars immediately, and they just blow you up, take all your weapons, and like damn, that's it.
But I think it had a lot to do with also the tone of the game as well.
Yeah, it was super dark.
Yeah,
it's like a super dark game. Like
so I didn't actually play either the DLC. So, but what did they have?
Well, I mean, like the Ballad of Gay Tony, for example, it adds a lot of color to it. It kind of like harkened back to what was that, GTA Vice City, and just how colorful and like fun that game was. And I mean, it adds a lot of like really hilarious missions too. That they're kind of things that are very tongue in cheek. Like I think there's one mission where you're chasing down some dude in a golf cart. Like you're just basically trying to like kind of like they had those missions before where you're just chasing down guys in cars and you're trying to like get them out of the car so you could pop them in the head and call it a day.
Yeah.
But it's like just the fact that you're chasing some dude around a golf course and everything in a little golf cart. There's just something funny about that.
Well, yeah. I mean, GTA was always it's been ever since I think 3 like a huge satire on like American society.
Yeah, exactly.
And so they've always thrown in these little touches to kind of make like just poke fun at companies, corporate, like all these like just little things that you would notice in the game as like being mirrored in real life.
Yeah. And I think that was what people missed in, like you said, about when it came to GTA 4, is it's because
they kind of played it. They played it pretty straight.
Yeah, it kind of felt more like watching Taxi Driver or The Godfather, or kind of one of those types of movies that had a super serious tone to it.
Yeah, like even like the main storyline about Nico, or was it Nico?
Nico.
Yeah.
Hey, Nico, my cousin.
Want to go bowling?
Want to go bowling? Want to see American titties?
You can't say that was serious.
Yeah, you can't. But that was kind of like, I feel like that was the only real like sort of funny part about the story. At least like at like the parts of the story that I did play through. I mean, at one point his cousin does like get like taken hostage or something like that, and you have to go rescue him. But after that, it's just like he keeps calling you up, like want to go
that's a
bowling?
running joke everywhere now.
Yeah, that's like the
About
big
bowling.
joke. But the Ballad of Gay Tony, it brought back a lot of that hilarity that like I missed from the series, you know, and then that was one of the big reasons also too back in those days why I liked the Saints Row series a lot. Like I
Yeah, that
actually
was
went
fun.
and played through Saints Row 3 because that series was just like that was all wackiness. It was a complete opposite.
Like they
of
didn't even
GTA 4.
try to make it. They went out of their way to make it the opposite of
Yeah.
GTA 4.
You have a button that's specifically to punch people in the balls. Like one button dedicated to nut punches.
Did you ever use the dildo sword?
Yes, I did actually.
That's the only weapon I ever had.
Yeah, I had my character run around naked and use a dildo sword. So that's the kind of game that you're getting with Saints Row, opposed to GTA 4.
For GTA 4, weren't like the Ballad of Gay Tony and was it Lost in the Dam?
Lost in the Dam?
They were standalone
Yes.
sales, right? So like
Yeah.
you didn't need the original one.
Yeah, they sold it as a separate disc, I think, originally too.
I think it was like $15, like when it came out.
It was something pretty cheap, like $15 or $20, and it's like you could just like play through it without having played GTA 4, I think. And then later on too, they released a version that had the whole game of GTA 4 plus the DLC.
Yeah, they had like the whole bundle. In there.
Yeah, so that's
I
the
think
one
that's
that I
pretty
bought.
cool. Yeah.
And it was really worth it. I mean, because I think at that time, because the game had already sold like 1 million something copies or more. I mean, you know, it was like a $40 disc for like all for the game and all the DLC, which was super smart of them to release all that in one package. I mean, kind of like what we talked about before with Game of the Year editions and everything, and about how like you know you get so much value out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that I feel like that's such, and I feel like you know those are really good ways to do DLC in particular for single player games. And
Just wait.
well, no, I mean like doing those kind of like big story based DLCs that can not only like expand upon the game in a meaningful way, but also can also stand alone by themselves
Yeah.
too. Rockstar is really good when it comes to that too, because another example of like really good DLC that I liked in particular was the one they did for Red Dead Redemption.
I don't remember that. I never played it.
Oh yeah. So the big DLC that they had for that game was called Undead Nightmare. And that was another thing that they sold like a standalone copy of by itself too. And so what that does is basically, I mean, you played Red Dead, you have it, right? So imagine playing the same kind of game, but it takes place during a zombie apocalypse.
Ooh.
Kind of an interesting thing, right? So what's awesome about it is it's like, you know, that's the whole setup for the game. Then it's basically the same, almost the same setup of Red Dead, but what happens is it's like now John Marston has to deal with like an old west that's overrun with zombies. You know,
so it kind of it branches off. It's not necessarily a continuation of the original game at all. I hope not.
Not at all. It basically is like it's an entirely different game then. You know, it's
so
like
it takes place in like a separate world and whatnot.
Yeah, it's like the same map and everything, and but I think what you do now is like all the towns, you can help defend the towns against a zombie horde and everything, and you can like earn settlements and stuff, and you have to keep like protecting them and protecting the survivors and all that. But it's just cool because it completely redesigns like the same game in such a way that it's like it gives you feels fresh and it feels different. You know, it's like you're getting so much value out of like a game that a lot of people already had played through and, played to death because it was like another one of those big open world games where there was a lot to do, a lot to see. And now it's just like you can enjoy that same world again in an entirely different way.
You can. It's kind of like, watching a movie that has, all these twists and turns and then going back and watching it again.
Yeah,
like
with knowledge.
It allows you to kind of relax a little bit. Like you don't need to pay attention every step of the way. Like a lot of the beats, but it allows you to look at other things and appreciate that, even if it is zombies.
Yeah, I mean zombies are kind of like they got played out so quickly. Like when with all the zombie themed.
Was this a nail in the coffin? Was this like around the time when?
I think that was like with Undead Nightmare in particular. It kind of took that theme of like using zombies in a game, but they did it in such a way that was like this is how you should do it, not like
Call of Duty where they had the Nazi zombies. Was it?
Yeah.
I forget which edition that was. It might have been like World at War.
I think so, but I think it's like every Call of Duty game does like zombies or something now.
Like it's expected from them.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is like looking at, going back to the other side of the coin and looking at bad DLC. It's like Call of Duty was one of the ones that I always kind of look at, because it's just like, I mean, Call of Duty and other shooters in general, you can't just pin all of that on Call of Duty, but it's kind of similar to the way that you were talking about Star Wars, and like, they basically like have like a season pass for what turns out to be nothing but like a bunch of map packs and stuff, and you don't know what you're getting when you're paying for all that stuff ahead of time. It's like, and it's just when I think about the way that they do their DLC, when it comes to like, all right, all you're paying for is like new maps and new weapons, new loadouts and things. Why is like, first of all, why is it so expensive? Like, you're paying like $15 to $20 for this stuff each, and it's like, why can't these just be unlockables in the game?
Because one, they know that people are going to pay for it no matter what.
That's so shady, though.
And two, I don't have number two. They just know that people. They just know that people will pay for it.
People will pay for it,
and they don't try to make like another
system.
Yeah, another pricing arrangement or anything like that. That's what's worked for them for years, and they don't need to change it. Although I will say, when it comes to shooters, I'm just going to vouch for Splatoon again, where they did pretty much the same thing. They did for $60. They did release like somewhat of a bare bones package,
right?
But they stated really early on that they're going to support the game throughout the next year for free.
Oh, that's good.
And so every single release of a map or weapon or gear that they've sent out has been, nobody has had to pay a dime for it.
And that's good. I like that.
And some people will see that as a kind of a bad thing, where, like in the same sense with Battlefront, they're given a bare bones package and they don't really like it. They paid $60 for this,
right?
But I think they were smart in the way that it allowed people to learn the game.
Yeah,
because with Splatoon, it's not like it's not a straightforward shooter. You have to learn a lot of things about movement and just the way the weapons work, how the stages work. Because if you compare it to a lot of other shooters, it'll be pretty much the same mechanics everywhere, just cover based, hide behind things, and there's just a lot more mechanics going on in that game than you would in like another military brown and gray shooter.
Yeah, and I think with Splatoon too, that kind of idea of doing like the free DLC and free updates and stuff, it makes a lot of sense because it's a completely new IP, right? And it's something that Nintendo is not really known for, is doing like competitive multiplayer shooters. So that's a good way to like get players into it and introduce like and try and attract players to play the game. Especially for people who already have like a Wii U and they're like, oh, you should pick up this game here. I mean, it's like $60 as well, but like we're gonna continue to give free updates to it. So like even though it might seem bare bones now, there's that promise of like future DLC for free.
Yeah.
And I think that's the key difference between like doing something like that, like Nintendo's doing with Splatoon, and for example, season passes.
Yeah.
Where it's that same promise, but they want your money up front.
Yeah, they want it now.
Yeah.
And we're not going to tell you if it will, even be good or not.
Exactly. And I think that's the thing that sucks about like season passes. I honestly think season passes are kind of a bad thing for the industry. And it's just another continuation of this pre-order mentality that we have in the gaming industry, how, because that's the whole idea, right? Is like with pre-orders, it's like they want you to pay full price for a product that you don't even know yet if it's good or not, or that if you'll like it or not.
I know. But okay, well, pre-orders, they're not new.
Oh yeah,
like
not at all.
People, I think, what was it? Ocarina of Time broke the world record for pre-orders when it was released.
Yeah,
and nobody knew how good or bad it was going to be, but they trusted it because it was Nintendo anyway.
Right. That was also a thing too, where it's like, I mean, for people who pre-ordered Ocarina of Time, I mean, you could get the gold cartridge, and they were only going to make like a limited amount.
Yeah.
So that was the thing, is like back in the days, pre-ordering was a way to really guarantee your copy. I mean, nowadays it's like, if you think about like, well, what's the next big budget game that's going to be released? It's like say for example another Call of Duty.
Yeah, you don't need to pre-release it in order to get a copy, because
exactly.
Worst comes to worst, they run out, you just download it.
Exactly. It's like, are you really worried that you're not going to get a copy?
It's all pre-ordering is now is just ways to sell incentives.
Yeah. Like what's the bonus that you're going to get for it?
That's what people care about now.
Yeah. It's like, do I order from Amazon and I get this particular thing, or do I order from GameStop and get this particular thing? Because it's like they each have like exclusive pre-order bonuses.
Like, it's not good enough to even have the game on day one. It's just you need something to go along with it to compensate for however terrible it might be.
Yeah, like I think for GameStop they're offering a Hot Ryu skin for Street Fighter V. He's got a beard and he's got no shirt on. So
I mean, he's had no shirt on before.
Yeah, but that's your incentive to pre-order from GameStop.
Ugh.
I could just grow my beard out and take my shirt off, and there you go. You don't even have to pay me any money.
I still can if you want, if you'd like me to.
Well, you could just keep giving me more cold, ice cold water here in the closet.
It's getting hot in here.
Yeah, it's very warm in here because we're getting very heated on this topic, for sure.
So while we're on the topic of DLC, and while we have been on it for the last half an hour or so, one thing that people kind of forget about is that before DLC, way before people could ever download anything on their computers, we had expansion packs.
Oh, yes.
And this might be new for people who, didn't grow up in that era, but probably, I wouldn't say they probably hit their high mark around like the early 2000s.
Yeah, definitely.
That's when it was, it was super popular. I think almost exclusively for PC gaming.
Right. Yeah, because you never really saw like any kind of expansion packs for consoles at all, even disc-based consoles at the time. I mean, really, it's like when I think of like expansion packs and things like that I bought, at least StarCraft is the big one, like Brood Wars.
Yeah, Brood War was probably the biggest expansion.
Yeah,
of
they
that
still
era.
play that in
Korea
they do. And stuff. People still play that competitively. That's insane to me.
Like expansion packs. I don't know if we're being too hard on DLC when expansion packs almost did the same thing.
Oh, yeah. True.
But it seems like people kind of remember them fondly, more so than, remember that time that DLC came out for this? Like, there are a couple of those, but when you think about, like, big name expansion packs, like Blizzard has always been really good with their releases.
Right. Like, in terms of, like Warcraft and StarCraft and even and WoW too.
Yeah. So like, why do you think like something like Brood War came to be so ubiquitous with with expansion packs as opposed to all this DLC crap?
Well, I think a lot of it too was I think Brood Wars in particular, like a lot of what it added was the same kind of stuff that I liked, that I was talking about earlier on about adding to the game in a meaningful way. StarCraft already was a really awesome, popular game with a great story.
Great story, universe, characters,
exactly,
and gameplay.
Yeah, and what they did was that they just gave you even more, like in such a small package. I mean, they weren't charging you the full price again.
It was like $20, I think.
Yeah, it was like $20, and it was just another disc, but it had a whole nother 3 episodes of like the story. They added so many like new units.
It was like 2 units per. I think it was maybe 2 or 3 per race.
Yeah, but they really
like
altered the game.
Yeah,
in a big way. And it changed like the competitive landscape of the game in general too. It's like you had to basically like almost relearn the game again because it was so different then. A lot of the units really made like a big change in multiplayer.
Like the medics.
The medics, definitely. Yeah, medics. I think Guardians were added too in Brood Wars for the Zerg units.
Yeah,
those long range kind of aerial.
No, those are
units.
lurkers.
Huh?
Weren't those lurkers?
I forget.
You mean the ones that burrowed underground?
No, like the air units that basically were like air to ground attack units, but they were like the longest range in the game. There was nothing that beat that range. I think that was added in Brood Wars. I think so.
Don't remember.
If I'm wrong about that, please leave a comment and let me know that I'm wrong, because I don't like to be wrong. But that game, I mean, it's so long ago that it's kind of hard to remember that stuff for real.
But like you said, people still play it today. Which is, that's pretty amazing if you think about it.
Yeah. And I think that's really the key about the expansion packs is like, you still had to put a lot of content in there to make people want to buy it. Because it's like you're still trying to get people to buy this. And and that's the thing is like you think about with expansion packs is you're not selling it to like necessarily to new players. You're selling it first of all to the people that already bought the game.
Because you needed
Exactly.
You needed to have the original game installed.
Yeah. I think that's what made it worthwhile too, is that they just had a ton of new content, for a much smaller price tag. And it's like typically these were for games that were already very good. Like other games that I see that had a lot of like expansions and that really made a splash in that market were like The Sims 2. The Sims in general, I mean, you could think about it in the same way almost that like Splatoon or those games. It's when you go back and you play the original versions of the games without like the base game, it's very limited.
Yeah, it feels empty almost.
Yeah, but like especially with The Sims 2, the expansions that they added to the game really like added to the game in a meaningful way beyond
Like it wasn't just costumes, maps, and new guns to kill your other Sims with.
Yeah, like in The Sims 2. I mean, I think one of the first expansions was that like they added college life to the game, which was for me that like at the time I was going into college and that was like super fun to play that.
How was real college?
Real college, not so much fun. Sims college, that was pretty fun. Actually, I almost didn't want my characters to leave the dorms just because it was so cool, like having all your characters.
Look, it's me doing exactly what I'm doing right now.
Yeah, well, hey, man, it's like there was a reason why I had like my friends over like in my dorm all the time playing like their actual characters in the game. So that was
I never went that far.
That was
it.
something we did in The Sims. Like a lot of my friends would actually have their own characters in the game, and then they would actually like play them whenever they would come over and hang out and everything.
Sounds amazing.
Yeah, it was pretty fun. But yeah, like The Sims, they had like especially The Sims 2, they had a lot of meaning behind each expansion pack.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's diminished nowadays because like when they have a new release like The Sims 3 and The Sims 4, they start out with a base game that takes all that away.
Yeah, I feel like they've had less and less for every major release. Like because when The Sims 4 came out, I heard there was a lot of problems like there were no babies in the game.
Yeah,
I think
there's
you couldn't
build
swimming
pools.
You couldn't build pools. I'm like, what is this?
Yeah, and that's stuff that's
essential.
Always been there. And that's the thing is, it's like now that it's like the thing is you can do that. You can have all that in the game to start with. You don't have to like re-release it every year. But it's like that's kind of become the trend now with DLC and expansions. Now is it's like they're making you rebuy a lot of this stuff that should already be in the game for all these sequels, which that's what sucks about it now, and that's why you look back at the way expansion packs were back in the days.
It was also because like you would get games at a lower frequency than you would today.
Yeah,
whereas
definitely.
when there was a big release, you'd have to wait maybe like 4 or 5 years for a sequel to that.
Yeah.
But if you had like the expansions kind of tided you over until then, but also gave you this really good amount of content.
Yeah. I think they're really realistically for me the only games nowadays that tend to do that are the MMOs actually.
Mm-hmm.
The way that Final Fantasy like 14 is doing that with like Heavensward, and they actually are releasing. They just announced a new expansion for it.
Yeah.
And even WoW, like the way WoW is still releasing expansions like to this day. It's like they already released another one just recently or something like that. I don't know. I don't keep up.
I think it's coming out this year. I don't really remember anymore.
Yeah, but just the fact that they're still doing expansions and still adding to that game, that's, a testament to expansion packs and how good they can be if done in a way that adds value.
One of the things I noticed is that most of the expansion packs that were released for games, back in the early 2000s were for like real-time strategy games.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Do you think that's because it was just easy to make? Like you already had a base and all you had to do was like tinker with some numbers and models?
Yeah, possibly. I mean, you still had to think about it too with especially when it came to adding new units.
Balance, yeah.
Yeah, you still have to think about balance in regards to that. It's like you don't want to make a unit that completely breaks the game and make it so unbalanced that that you can't use that in competitive play.
Mm-hmm.
Like in the same way that like we're talking about Street Fighter and talking about DLC characters.
You just have to find a really fine balance between that.
Exactly. So I mean, you can imagine too that might be another reason why there was so much time between those expansion releases, is like so that they had time to like play test all that rather than just kind of like announce it and then release it like right away. Because now that's what you can do. You can release it right away.
Release a lot of unfinished stuff into the world.
Exactly. And then it's like,
and if it breaks, you just say, "Oh, we'll release a patch soon."
Yeah, exactly. That's the mentality. It's just like you just put it out now, get as much money from it as you can. If it's broken, we'll put a Band-Aid on it for now and just fix it later.
And then people will forget when you release the new game next year.
Exactly.
Like with Assassin's Creed.
Yeah. So I think, that's kind of as much as, we wanted to say about like, I don't know, contemporary DLC. I mean, I honestly like when looking at the future of it, I think there does need to be still like a higher standard of quality when it comes to DLC.
Mm-hmm.
Game design in general should have a higher standard. But I mean, DLC, I feel like, shouldn't necessarily, like, I really wish DLC was not part of like the initial game design nowadays. Like, I wish developers didn't go into a project thinking of like, not only, all right, this is the base game that we have to design, and this is our DLC model for after we finish the base game. From day one, it shouldn't be like that necessarily.
Do you think it's just a lot of unfinished ideas?
Not necessarily. I think a lot of times that they set aside things to release as DLC later, as long as it's not like quote unquote essential.
Like when they're coming up with ideas in like a boardroom, they'll have ideas that they like but wouldn't necessarily fit into this game.
Exactly. I feel like it's like a lot of times when they're brainstorming ideas, they probably just go like, all right, well, we're going to build our game around these core ideas. These ideas fit into our model, but we can release that later. It does. I feel it should be done in a way that expands on what they're trying to do with the game already, and not just kind of, tacked on there for like extra money or like tacked on
just because it's like a cool idea.
Yeah.
Because no matter how good of an idea it would be, or like how good the storyline is going to be, if it doesn't really have impact for the main game, like wait a little bit.
Exactly.
And see if you can, connect that and create a story that will have impact on it.
Exactly. If it adds to the game, just take the time and finish it and add it to the game, and make it even better. Make it as good as you can be before you release it, rather than have to patch these things in later when, people might not even care anymore.
Yeah.
They might just, buy your game, think like, oh, this game is very bare bones and it's terrible. I know that they're going to release stuff later, but you know what? I have a million other things to play.
Yeah. Well, going back to Star Wars Battlefront, I don't think they even had that luxury.
Yeah.
Even though it's EA and it's DICE and it's freaking Star Wars, they had to release it by the time the movie came out.
Yeah.
And there's like going to be this whole year ahead of us where we won't see what's coming yet. Like they have actually announced like a couple of free maps.
Nice.
But they're, from what I remember reading, is that they're not going to release anything The Force Awakens themed.
Oh.
Because they want to keep that world like canon. Like
right.
They don't want to have anything in the games that could be like
contradictory.
Yeah, which is insane, I think, because when you have like one of the first maps you play is like the Battle of Jakku.
Yeah.
And that's in that world's in the movie.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, why worry about it then in that case? And also, it's no one ever came out and said, hey, Battlefront is considered canon just because it came out now.
Yeah, like it's a very confusing world. I don't want to get into it really.
Yeah, that could be another episode where we talk about Star Wars canon. I could talk about that for quite a while.
And again, I will sit back and take a nap.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we're all DLC'd out right now.
Yeah, definitely. Just know that you as consumers, you have the power, not the publishers. Vote with your wallet. So if you stop paying money for shitty content, hopefully they'll stop putting out shitty content.
This advertisement has been paid by RetroActive Podcast.
Does that mean we get money for that? Because that would be
no,
great.
that means we paid for that advertisement.
Does the money go to us?
We don't get money.
So you're just going to give me $1 right now for that because I made
No, you pay me $1 because I was. Never mind.
God damn it!
Don't you know how sponsorship or promotions work?
Not really, because we don't have any yet. But if you'd like to promote us, please send us an email. And that about wraps it up for
enough pandering
and this episode here of RetroActive. I almost forgot our name. God, we're still new at this.
Yeah, we still gotta just keep saying it in your head all the time. And every other word is gonna be retroactive.
Every other retroactive is gonna be retroactive.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So bring it back to the final round. So Joey, what are you gonna do for this week? What's on the agenda for things to do? This week?
I just bought and played through all of Firewatch.
Firewatch? Oh yeah.
Did you get it?
I did not yet, but I hear that it is blowing up on Twitch right now.
$20.
Yeah?
That's all it takes for you to have a good time.
Looks so pretty, actually.
It doesn't sound right at all.
Only $20? Sign me up.
But yeah, the game is gorgeous. It's
Yeah.
probably the best looking game I've played in a very long time.
Nice.
Like, do you know who Ollie Moss is?
No, I don't.
He's this illustrator who does, if you've ever seen his posters, he does kind of alternate minimalist style posters, of well-known movies.
Oh, okay.
And like in addition to all his other stuff, but I think that's what made him like really popular.
Right.
They're really, really beautiful, and like they use a lot of oranges and just like solid colors
Nice.
that look really, really nice. And he did the art for this game. Like he did
okay.
all like the environments and also the placement of the environments.
Mm-hmm.
So like one of the things I thought was interesting was during an interview, he kind of described how he wanted the environments to come up naturally.
Yeah.
And it was tricky putting things in certain places without making them seem like obvious.
Right. Cause it's
like
still
just
a
imagine
game.
you walking down the forest and like there's a clear path right here with a log like sticking out that makes, obviously I need to go there, and then you walk that way. You want to have it be natural. Like there's nothing, that stuff doesn't exist in nature, and they wanted to emulate that as well as they could.
Nice.
And I think they did a really, really good job with this because it's one of those wandering games that
I like those a lot.
Yeah, they've been pretty popular these days. Like, what was it, like Gone Home, and do you remember that one?
I
And
have
like,
it.
There's a couple of other ones that I can't remember right now, but like quote unquote walking simulators.
Yeah, it's like it's one of those kind of games you just like load it up and you just kind of walk through the game, smell the flowers, no real worry
there's
about
not as much
danger,
game.
timers.
There's not people saying that those don't feel as much like games as they could be. But Firewatch, I think it toes the line really, really well in that it tells like a super compelling story, but you feel like you are this character.
Nice. Yet another game I'll have to pick up pretty soon, along with The Witness.
Oh well, actually, I would as much as I talk about The Witness, I think Firewatch is one that you want to do first,
right?
Just because it's a it is a short game, and it's like but it's also a complete package. I think.
Yeah.
It's not something that you need to rack your brain over for weeks.
Nice. Well, I will definitely check it out then.
Right now.
I'm gonna go home right now and play it. Pick it up.
Okay. Well, maybe you should finish your side of the story here. What are you doing?
What am I doing? God, I was gonna say something and I totally blanked on it because I was holding it there, and then we got started talking on something.
I'm sorry.
And then I dropped it. No, but Joss and I, my girlfriend Joss and I, we were playing a lot of Rock Band 4 the other night.
I thought it was last night.
It was last night.
That's why you're so sleepy today.
I'm still feeling it from last night because so we back in the days, this is like what, 8. Well, yeah, about
4 or 5 or 6
years ago.
That's not even back in the day. That's just like a couple years ago.
It feels like it. So we used to go to Joey's place all the time and stay up all night on Fridays playing Rock Band and drinking and stuff. Like it's like what most young 20-somethings do probably. Maybe not nowadays but that's what we did. So yeah, my girlfriend and I we've been playing we played a lot of Rock Band 4 last night because we found out that you can actually import all the old songs from Rock Band 1 and Rock Band 3 as long as you have like paid for the unlock keys in the past and everything. So yeah, I spent a lot of time yesterday morning while she was at work downloading all the songs again. What's stupid is when you go into the store, there's no like just download all button. You have to literally like
pick each one,
download.
That sounds terrible.
Download, and you're like, oh my god. And for Rock Band 3, that was like 83 songs.
Including all the ones that like you've downloaded.
Yeah,
before.
I already re-downloaded all the ones that I had bought in the past. But yeah, now we have like 200 something songs on our PS4.
Not bad.
And so yeah, we spent a lot of time last night, like playing a lot of those old Rock Band 1 songs, like Maps and Creep and In Bloom and stuff like that, and all the old songs. And I played like Timmy and the Lords of the Underworld. Yeah, back in the days, man, on the PS3, we were top 20 on that song when Rock Band first came out. But yeah, we spent a lot of time last night doing that. So I think we'll probably I kind of gotten back into Rock Band 4, and I kind of want to take one of the guitars home and play it on my PS3 and go back and play Rock Band 2 and 3.
I wish I still had my guitars.
Yeah,
like when I moved, I didn't toss them. I donated them.
Yeah, donated them.
Sadness.
That's fine.
Which I don't know why I did because I kept the games.
Yeah, so like how are you supposed to play it?
I'll just borrow Leslie's guitar.
Yeah, I think you could probably still pick up like a cheap one, from somewhere like
Goodwill or something.
Yeah, or even eBay. Just eBay it. But yeah, that's probably what I'll be doing this week. I did finish a game recently. The first game of the year. My first game that I finished this year was Uncharted Golden Abyss for the PlayStation
PSP?
Vita.
Oh,
That's
Vita.
for the Vita, yeah. that system that nobody bought, and
you
that
were their only sale.
I'm like one of the only people that bought that system back in the days. I don't even think people realize it's still a thing, but it's mainly being supported in Japan by a bunch of like really niche Japanese RPGs that I don't think are the kind of game that not only will you never play those games, but I don't even think I would play most of those games.
Wow.
So that's how niche they are. Like they're games that I wouldn't even really play. But I finished it just recently. You know, like I actually really like Uncharted a lot. You know, it's kind of like Tomb Raider, but but with a guy instead of a
with a guy
instead of a very buxom lady. So. It was really fun actually. It wasn't quite as good as like the PS3 versions, but I mean, you know, something that like I picked up and I was halfway through it already, so I was like, I'll just maybe play through it a little bit, finish it.
Did it have a Donut Drake in that one?
No,
the one where he has a fat suit.
That was another thing about it that I was kind of sad about. They don't because it wasn't made by Naughty Dog. It was actually made by another studio that was more known for making like iToy games for the PlayStation 2 and 3. So yeah, they don't have quite the same, like it doesn't have quite the same humor in it and the same style. And there's a lot of really a lot of touchscreen controls that are shoehorned into the game, much in the way that they shoehorn in like the touchscreen stuff with Legend of Zelda Phantom Hourglass.
Oh yeah,
I
you
was saying
told
a couple
me.
weeks ago. Yeah, as much as I don't know why I have a penchant for playing these fucking games, but
you're just attracted to these very, very strange.
They're cheap,
like
I guess.
Cheap games, okay.
Yeah, they're cheap, and I pick them up, and then I play through them, and I realize that's probably why they're cheap, is because they're not that great.
Nobody wants them.
Yeah, but I beat that recently, so that's the first game of the year that I've finished.
Ooh, how many are on your list?
Well, there's a lot. I have to finish at least 12 for this year, though.
12, okay.
So that's my goal.
Beat Firewatch 12 times.
12
Does
times.
that count?
No.
Does that count?
It'll count for one if I buy it, though. So, but it just makes my backlog bigger anyway.
Well, like I said, it's 5 hours. Not going to take you that long.
Yeah. All right. With that being said, I think that about does it for this episode of
it's been 1 hour here.
Yeah. Wow.
Thanks for listening to us speak
thank you
about
again.
our problems with all this DLC crap.
Yeah.
Next episode we won't be as grumpy, I promise.
Yeah. This is
or at least Will won't. I might still be.
I'll try to be happier. I'll definitely get another cup of coffee before we start this episode next week. So
yeah. So if you don't have anything else to say, I guess we can sign off here.
Sign off. Yeah. If you like the listen there, give us a like, comment,
follow.
subscribe.
I'm not sure where they're listening to this. So subscribe on iTunes or something.
Subscribe on iTunes.
That's probably the easiest way.
Yeah, we also put it out on our YouTube channel. It's Sikaya.
So if you're listening to us there, I don't know what's wrong with you.
Hello, lovely subscribers over on YouTube. We love you too. We promise we will work on more videos soon too.
Someday.
All right, and for that, I am Will.
I'm Joey.
And we will catch you next time
on RetroActive.